Welcome to Straight Talk for Entrepreneurs, where we reveal what it really takes to build a successful business. Whether you are starting with an idea or growing your business, this is the show for you. My guests and I will show you how to build a strong mindset, a powerful body, a profitable business. Hi, I'm Brandon C. White, and this is Build a Business Success Secrets. So did you sell the print shop at that, did you come back from that and say, hey, print shop's over, we're selling this, we're going to build water bottles?
Yeah.
Literally.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I didn't tell the employees just like that, but I asked one of the employees, I said, hey, water bottles, what do we do? And she says, aluminum. There's this one brand, it starts with an S. It's awesome. It's like, okay, great. Maybe I'm not doing water bottles. I went and bought that S branded water bottle from the local Patagooch, and it was awesome. It had a great texture. It's just beautiful. It just felt really cool. But then I drink out of it, and it was like the orifice was just too small, and I couldn't get ice cubes in it. And I dropped it. It dented. The gold stuff on the inside had flaked off. And I was thinking about when I lived in Australia, I read this article about people have parakeets in their kitchen and they're dying from the Teflon toxicity. And I'm thinking, is this Teflon in my water bottle? And where did it go? Did I just ingest Teflon? So I called the company. I asked them, I'm like, what's this gold stuff? And they're like, no, we're not going to talk about that. Get out of here, kid. You're bugging us.
So I do want to come back to this moment, but you did mention that you lived in Australia. And I have to ask, where in the story did you go to Australia?
So I kept going back and forth, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. Croix, St. Thomas. And finally I was like, when I was in third grade, when I was in third grade, I'd heard this story about, Crocodile Dundee had come out. And one of the fourth graders, he was a bully. I don't remember his name, or else I'd definitely call him out. He had his grandma come in to share a story of being in Australia. And I remember in fourth grade or third grade, it was a fourth grade split. He was in fourth, I was in third, but we were together in the same classroom. I was like, I'm going. I live in Australia. I'm going to Australia. And so I just put all of my effort into getting to Australia, and showed up when I was probably about 20 and lived there for a year.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to fill that chapter in because you got all this stuff so you did Australia, but we're not going to even go into that. We're going to come back to this water bottle, because I do remember I actually have all Hydroflasks right here. I got all these Hydroflasks, but it didn't start with them. It started with whatever that company is you're saying, and they dented. I'm not beating up on them, because the reason that they were in the early days, that's all that we had. And they had some cool designs, candidly.
Totally.
But they do rust.
Yep.
And I remember I actually have the orange one that I used to keep everywhere. And I looked in there, and I was like, that was like rust. Mm-hmm. And I was like, should I be drinking that? And I was like, I didn't see that. And I just kept going.
Yeah.
So how do you, so you have basically these water bottles that were cool, but they didn't function right. How do you figure out, I actually don't even know how you design this. Well, what do you do now? Well, first, did you sell the shop, give the shop away, or how's that work?
Well, so we were very, very fortunate that there was a loophole in the contract that we, after the economy hit in the state, on the mainland, not the States is when I was in the Virgin Islands. In Hawaii, this is called the mainland because Hawaii is a state. So in the mainland, the economy had crashed, but it took a minute to get out to Hawaii because everybody had purchased ahead of time last 6 months, last year, their forward planning vacations. So when that started to all kind of come down, we were fortunate enough to get out of our lease and walk away from it. And we basically had a fire sale and sold off, the printer to a guy who was, he would kind of source from us, and he was just a good friend. So we sold him basically all the kit.
And you sell all this and stay in Hawaii and decide that you're going to build water bottles.
Yeah. Yeah.
How's that go?
Tough. It was rough. It was a hard time.
How do you, I mean, in order to do this, I don't know where they're made. I assume that you tried to go to China. Like, did you even understand that? Or did you, I mean, it's a tough sourcing things. I know with Alibaba and everything, it gets easier, apparently, but even it's hard. I studied in China, like back in early days, and doing business remotely and understanding what's going on, especially with that. So what do you draw this thing on a piece of paper? What do you do?
That's pretty dang close to accurate. That's what I did. There at the sign company, we worked with a guy, one of our clients or customers was a guy who would do sort of like business field trips to the Canton Fair. Back in the old days, it was called the Canton Fair. I can't remember what we call it nowadays. But it was basically where all of the factories come together under one roof, and they set up a stall and they say, hey, we're the best factory on the planet for doing this and that and the other. And this guy had a remote control vehicle shop in Oahu. And we knew this guy, and he's going, hey, yeah, just go to China and get whatever you want made at these factories. And it's just great. And so I talked to him. I was like, well, what about a water bottle? He's like, no, nobody's doing water bottles. I'm like, well, there's got to be somebody doing water bottles. He's like, well, let me check. He checked. He came back. He's nobody's doing water bottles. Okay, well, I know that there's at least one company, because there was a metal water bottle, single wall bottle, that is down in your neck of the woods in California, who was making bottles out of China. So can we find that factory? Found that factory, and they're like, no, we don't do that. I'm like, okay, well, what do we do? And so it was difficult because, yeah, there was no Alibaba. Google was not really a thing that I was really super proficient in, and it wasn't as nearly as robust, let alone in a communist country at that time. And, it was about a 1.5 year search, and finally found somebody who said, yeah, I'm willing to take a shot and see if it's going to work. And the double wall vacuum insulated sports water bottle could potentially work. So we sold everything we had. We sold the sign shop. We sold our cutlery. We sold our, every piece of furniture we had. We ended up with a suitcase each and about $11,000. And we ordered 3,000 MOQ, minimum order quantity, of double wall vacuum insulated bottles.
So I just want to go to the technology. How do you understand, double walled vacuum sealed technology? How do you learn or do something to figure out that that's going to keep water cold and hot for a prolonged period of time?
Well, so in between the aluminum bottle and Hydroflask, I talked to my brother who was living here in Bend, and REI had just opened up. He was working at REI. And I asked him, I'm like, well, what do you know about water bottles? And he says, yeah, there's this company. It's a single wall. It starts with a KK, and you should get one and you're going to love it. And so I got one, and I liked it for the fact that I could put my ice cubes in it, but that was about as far as it went. We'd go out, surf, come back, and it was so hot, couldn't even drink it. The lip was weird and it dribbled, and I wasn't a real big fan. And I remembered that my grandpa had an old school thermos that had glass on the inside, metal on the outside. And even in the Virgin Islands, I had plastic on the inside and metal on the outside that kept my drinks a little bit colder, a little bit longer. And so my first thought was, well, we'll just do plastic inside and metal on the outside. But then BPA started to kind of get a little bit of a worse and worse rap. And so I was like, okay, we're doing stainless on the inside and stainless on the outside. And I just kind of told the factory that that's what we were doing. And I don't know. I just said it was going to be, and they just made it happen. They took a chance and said, because in Japan, they were making like very small little ones for like milk and things. And so I was like, well, let's just take those and make them bigger. And so then I started traveling to China and going to the factories. And there was only a couple of vacuum insulation factories at that time. And we found one that said yes.
And so you drew it and you understood somewhat of the technology, but did they help you create this because you had something of reference?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I just drew sort of like a rough outline. I did do a lot of research on Oahu about different mouth sizes. I bought every single, pop bottle, beer bottle, juice bottle, every bottle on the island. I owned at least one or two, and I would just take sips from it, and I'd mark, okay, well, this is cool, this is not cool, I like this, I don't like that, too big, too small. And so I kind of came up with the mouth size and then drew the bottle out from the mouth size. And that's how it's and then they had an engineer who was working there at the factory, and I got to work with the engineer.
So you basically clean out your bank account and you order 3,000 bottles. Did you, and I imagine, I don't even know, did Hydroflask have a box that they came in packaging, or was it just attached? I don't remember.
We had a belly band, which is just wrapped around. It said, it's a little piece of real estate where we got to say what it was that we did, which was kind of fun because nobody else was doing it. So, got to come up with how do you come up with a copy for something that has never existed really before, which was, I really got a kick out of that.
How'd that come to you?
Well, I just put, pictures of mountains and cold and snowflakes and desert, hot on the other side, and it keeps hot and keeps cold, and 24 and 12 hours. And that's how it kind of started. And then it refined over the years as we picked up, better and better talent and graphic designers and things.
What's the logo? This is the logo, right?
It is, yeah.
What's that? Did you do that?
That's the newer one. I came up with one that was very similar to it. The first one was a wave. The first 3,000 bottles was a wave because we were living in Hawaii. And then we hired this big hotshot fancy marketing company, and, huge, stupid 6-figure contract to come up with the logo and branding. And they weren't doing anything for us. And one day they came in with a bunch of logos, and I didn't like any of them. One was okay, kind of, not really, but sort of okay. But at the bottom of the page, it said 99 designs. And I thought, I wonder what that means. And so we said, okay, well, we're going to think about it. Thanks, bye. And I typed in 99 designs on the computer web, and it showed me what that was. And I was like, oh, you sons of guns. And so I was like, you guys are done. You're out. And they're like, well, $280,000 and we'll go towards the exit. And I opened up they brought in their top brass. The attorneys come in, the HR woman, for whatever reason, she came in. She was just a bulldog. I guess that's why they had her there. All the top brass comes in. We have a meeting, very serious, big contract. I opened up the contract and I hadn't signed it. I was just like, we're done. We're done here. And so they're like, oh, you just go ahead and sign that there, and we'll just go ahead and finish it for you. And my partner picks up her pen. I reached over, took the pen from her. I said, nope, leave. And they did. And then so I just sketched it out. And then saving all of that money, I was able to hire the first graphic designer in-house. And her name was Alice Drobina. She's just awesome. She's from the Czech Republic. And Alice and I just doodled on paper and napkins, and I would brainstorm, and she would create, and she would brainstorm, and I would create. And we had a lot of fun.
Was it just a happy person?
Yeah. Just little water spouts coming out. And it's after I left, they ran it over with a steamroller to make it flattened, because, corporate branding has to be flat, and it has to be very bold and very stout. You can't have wispy little lines because it doesn't show up on billboards, which I understand.
So how do you, going back to this, because this is like really important stuff, because we sort of jumped a little bit, but how do you sell all 3,000 of these things? And how do you even sell them?
Excuse me. Well, so back up to that. What happened was we ordered 3,000, but we ran out of money, and we moved back to Bend and moved in with my mom, and we had no money. Excuse me. So we said, well, can you please just send us 1,500? and he says, sure, because even those 1,500 are not going to sell. The guy in China at the factory. I said, what do you mean? He goes, nobody wants a double wall vacuum insulated water bottle. They are only drinking out of aluminum and single wall and maybe stainless, but nobody's ever going to buy them. So whatever, sure. I said, you know what? You let me sell them. You just keep making them. I'm going to sell some more. And it was kind of like the challenge was on.
And so where do you go to sell them?
We went up to Portland to the Saturday market under the Burnside Bridge. And it was a really, really hot summer day. And we were told that, no, we couldn't sell water at the market. And we said, no, we have a water bottle. And her name was, it doesn't matter her name. I can't remember right now, but she said, no, you can't do that. You can't sell water. This guy's selling water and he sells elephant ears. Best elephant ears on the planet, by the way, Portland Saturday market. But I convinced her that, no, it's just a metal bottle. We're not selling water. She goes, okay, you know what? We don't have room for you. Just go out by the train tracks and you can put up a table out there. Oh, sweet. Awesome. I'll take it. And so we stood out next to the train tracks with a little Rubbermaid table. And from the sign company, we knew about branding and printing. So we had a table throw, which is different from a tablecloth. And, we knew all that stuff. And we had little brochures and flyers. And I literally just filled it up with ice and put a piece of duct tape on it and wrote Friday, 7 p.m. And Saturday at 10 a.m., I'd force the bottle into people walking by his hands, and they'd look in it and they'd look at me like, what are you doing? They'd look inside and there's ice inside of it. And they go, whoa, whoa. And they'd look at the duct tape and say Friday night before, and they'd go, how does that happen? Is that magic? It is. And for $20, you can buy some magic. And they would. And so what happened, what was her name? Was it Rona? I can't remember her name, but we ended up having a line that went around the corner to buy the Hydroflasks, and it went past her office. And she kept getting upset because she couldn't go in and out of her office because the line would go past it. And so she'd come out and, you can't keep doing this. Well, you said we could, and so the third weekend we were there, she finally gave us a booth.
Oh, well, that was nice of her.
It was awesome. Yeah. And then people would only come to get the Hydroflasks, and they would buy other things. And so we were her favorite. And I even got free elephant ears sometimes.
Oh, well, that was nice of her.
I like elephant ears.
So how long are you thinking at retail, or what are you thinking? You're selling on the Saturday market, the country market, what is it called? Farm market? Farmers
Portland
market?
Saturday market. It was Saturday and Sunday. It's a little bit of a misnomer.
So what do you say, hey, we're going to put these in retail stores?
Well, that was always sort of the goal, but we didn't have any real clear channel or way that we'd planned out to get there. But it was definitely something that was on the books. We just didn't know. It was in the hopper, but we didn't know what that meant. And we were in Bend, where we were headquartered out of my mom's house and her shed, and signed up for the Munchin Music on Thursdays. And we set up a little booth to be a vendor at this little fair thing in the park, in Drake Park. And a guy came up. Well, okay, so first somebody came up and said, hey, I'm from the Bend Bulletin newspaper. Can we do an article? Like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever. So we were in the newspaper as a new startup business. It was a slow day, I guess. And then the following week, somebody came up and said, hey, I saw you in the newspaper. I was like, oh, hey, we're famous. This is great. We're really starting to take off here. And he said, I'm a sales rep, and I'd like to sell your bottles. And I said, okay, what does that mean? What does that look like? Because I had no clue. I had no idea what a sales rep was. I'd never dealt with a sales rep before. I didn't know how retail worked. And he said, well, I need 12 bottles and I'll go out and sell them into the retail stores. And I said, well, we only had like maybe 200 left. So giving him 12 for free was a really big leap of faith. I didn't know if we'd ever see him or those bottles again. And I said, okay, you come meet me tomorrow and I'll give you the 12 bottles. Like if you're serious, then I'll know. And sure enough, I met him the next day and gave him the 12 bottles. And I literally just wrote them off. We're never going to see him again. But then that made me realize that maybe we could get these into retail stores. And my mom's neighbor, Trudy, owns Mountain Supply, which is a mountain outdoor outdoor gear store here in Bend. And Trudy said, yeah, bring me some bottles. So Trudy started selling into retail, which we thought was awesome. We were going to really make it because of Trudy. And so it was really great that she took the risk on us. But then the sales rep calls and says, how many bottles do you have left? We're like, well, X number, 200, 300. He goes, those are all mine. And I need another 2,000. We got, 15 little micro stores around the Northwest. So we faxed China and said, hey, can we get that other 1,500? Ended up selling them. People do want them. And so they sent the 1,500 pretty quick because they were ready to go. And by the time those 1,500 reached our place, we had already sold like 3,000. And so we ordered 20,000. And so we went 15, 20,000.
How, and I assume your margins were good.
Yes, they were, but our overhead was pretty huge. Like we had to get out of my mom's shed pretty darn quick. We started out in my grandparents' garage in Salem, and we had to get out of there and move to my mom's shed, had to get out of there. So we took on first we started out with 5,000 square foot lease and started with that, outgrew that really quickly when the 20,000 came in. Then we had another 5,000 square feet. And, the margins were good, but we were completely bootstrapping 100% of the money.
Yeah. When you ordered 20,000, was he giving you, I'm just for people listening out there, right? Cause everybody tries to figure this out. Was he extending you terms or were you paying up front?
Oh no, it's all cash up front. Yeah, no, it was 50% up front and then 50% when it ships. And it was, a water bottle is what, $5.50, but you times that by 20,000 and that adds up pretty quick, especially when you're trying to bootstrap.
So what were you doing? Like, how are you getting that money?
We started out friends and family, credit cards, personal debt. We started out like that. And bootstrapping, but it just started to snowball so quickly, which is something that people don't talk about too much. Is businesses, the common misnomer is that, well, if you don't get enough sales, you go out of business. The other side of that, I guess that's not a misnomer because it's true, but the other flip side of that is you get too many sales, you could also go out of business. And so that was the kind of the line that we walked quite regularly. And then we ended up having a 40,000 piece order that we ordered, and it showed up and it was rusted and non-insulated. And that really, really set us back. And that got us to the point where we had to go out and look for, I was going to put air quotes around angels, but I'll just instead say VCs.
So did you have to eat that order? The cost?
The worst part about that 40,000 was there was a number of just like, in hindsight, good things, but at the time it was just horrible. As soon as I found out, so I'd been in China for about a month and I got the flu du jour, the pig or swine or whatever it was, SARS or whatever it was called at that time. So I spent the majority of that month in the hospital. I'd go to the factory all morning. And I'd start at, like 7 and I'd get done at like 5. And then I'd get done at the factory and they'd take me back. They'd drop me off at the hospital. And then I'd check myself in the hospital from like 7 until 2 in the morning. And then I'd go over to my hotel and try to sleep for a little bit. And then they'd pick me up and I'd do it all again. And it was dreadful. I came home from that trip and showed up to the 40,000 bottles. And as soon as I saw that it was rusted, I was on the next plane and right back over and found out what had happened, explained how we were not in a good space and that, the future of the company really hinged on this. And so I was able to talk the manufacturer into extending net 90 or net 120. And after it reached, not from takeoff point, but after we get them point. And so I thought I was sitting fat and happy. We thought everything was good. And I get back to Bend from that trip, and I get called into the bank, and our banker says, "You don't have any more money." I said, "Well, yeah, I know, it's okay, because we got 40,000 water bottles though, so we're good. We're going to sell those. We'll pay you. We're all good." She goes, "Oh, okay. Well, as long as you have those 40,000, you guys should be fine." So, yeah, we're good. I didn't tell her about the rest. I go back to the headquarters. This is my first morning back out of being in the Chinese hospitals. And there was nobody there in the warehouse. My partner was gone. We had an employee. She was gone. We had about 20, 25 day laborers checking all the bottles. They were all gone. And I didn't know what had happened. I was hungry. I went over to the drawer to get the cash to go get some food. And I get this like Dear John letter. And my partner said, "No, it got too hard. I took off back to Hawaii." And then I get another, I get open up the email, and I get an email from the employee that, basically she's gone and she took the money. She stole the money, the cash, and she paid the day laborers like pennies on the dollars and said, "Hey, Travis isn't paying you what he owes you, but he wants you to take this, penance and kick rocks, take off. Sorry, it's Travis, not me." I had no idea she was doing it. So she kept the money.
So you made this comment. I made a note to ask you. So this is the comment that you made earlier in the conversation when you said you had millions taken from you.
That was later. That was post.
Oh, well, let's hear that. But so what? Wasn't this your girlfriend?
Yeah.
So did you guys get like mad? She get mad at you?
No, I had no idea. I had no clue. I literally walked in. I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, she's probably in the back." "Oh, okay. Well, she's probably in the back," because we had the female employee, and they're in the back. They weren't in the back.
I mean, I'll say this because we are men. I don't think that we're always that smart or aware, but were you at all, was there like any red flag? Like, "Hey, Travis, get your rear back here out of China." Like
No. It was all hunky dory. It was all great. It was all really, really good. Well, not great. I mean, we had 40,000 bloody rusted bottles, but as far as I knew, everything was.
Did you ever speak to, have you talked to her since? Like, "Hey, what made you take off?"
Oh, she said it just was too hard. Yeah, it was too difficult. Yeah.
Did she think to call you and be like, "Hey, come"?
I didn't realize. I didn't.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. But it didn't keep you down.
No. I think the worst part was that like everybody in the back was gone, and I was sitting on a 10,000 square foot 5-year lease. I'd just been at the bank. There's no money. I know my wallet has no money in it, and if it's if I did, it was RMB, and I can't exchange RMB for food. And went to the cash drawer, and when that cash was gone, it was kind of it was one of those sinking feelings, like, okay, what do I do? And I was hungry. And so I just took a couple of the good bottles, and I went next door to Frank at Country Catering. And I was like, "Frank, you want to trade bottles for food?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, let's totally do that." So I got a sandwich and a Mountain Dew, and I was back on my feet again.
So what did you do?
Well, so I put an ad on Craigslist that I needed help at Hydroflask, and I got a response. The very first response was somebody who said, "I do marketing, I do secretarial things, I do sales, I do this and graphic design and that." I said, "Come in, let's go." And she showed up that same day. I explained where we were, and she says, "All right, here we go." I said, "All right, here we go." And I called my family. My family came over and helped start checking insulated versus non-insulated, rust versus non-rust. And we just started selling bottles to get by. And then we got the call that the money was due on those 40,000 coming across. They did not want to extend the line of credit. And that was really tough, because 40,000 times $5 easy numbers is what, 250?
Yeah, 250 grand. So
it was like, okay, well, I don't have 250 grand. So I had to go out and get the outsiders to come in.
So how'd that, so now you're in raising money mode, in crisis mode to raise the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rocking a hard spot. Huh?
How'd that work out?
The first one went okay. It was a straight interest, how much do you need? Here's the interest rate. Bob's your uncle, off to the races. Cool. And then, but we just kept going so much, it was like 40,000 that lasted us 4 months was now lasting 3 months. And then it lasted 2 months, and then we'd get another one, and it only lasted a month. And then we needed 40,000 for here and 40,000 for there. And it pretty soon got up to be quite a bit. And in that time, once the money came back in, she came back, she showed up. And, but we were running so thin. We had her car got repossessed. Our garbage cans got repossessed from our house. We were running really thin.
So how did you raise money? I know there's a sort of a crazy story, right? Some guy shows up and some guy says he can raise money or something.
Well, he showed up and he says, I got a call from the front, because we ended up getting to the point where we had an employee up front, and she called and said, "Hey, Travis, there's this guy here who wants to see you." And I thought, oh, he's just a debt collector. He's just here to repossess something. I don't want to see him, no way. And I said, send him away. And she called back and says, no, he's here for a job. I said, well, tell him we're not hiring. And she called back later and says, he's not leaving. He wants to talk to you. I'm like, oh, Christ. Okay. So I went forward and met with him, and he says, hey, I want to work here. And I said, well, and I didn't tell him we were closing, but this was on a Wednesday, and I was getting ready to close on Friday, and just completely shut down. There was no more money, couldn't pay the employees, and
you were done in your head.
Done. But I didn't want to tell him that. So I just said, I'm sorry, we're not hiring. I work here now. You don't. And we went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And finally he goes, okay, why? Like, tell me the truth. I said, let's tell you the truth. We are closing on Friday. He says, well, why? I said, well, because we need money. He goes, how much do you need? I said, $1 million. And he goes, okay, so if I get you $1 million by Monday, or by Friday, can I show up on Monday? Yeah, sure, dude. Let's do that. Goes, oh.
Yeah, let's do that.
He kind of skips off, and I thought, well, that guy's crazy. And sure enough, I write the letter, I'm so sorry, folks, we got to let you go, and we're closing down, and I'm getting ready to skip town, and I don't know what I was going to do next. And Friday morning, this guy shows up, and same thing. It was like, Travis, this guy's here to see you. Well, who is it? I don't know. He just says he has a meeting with you. What time? 10 o'clock. Who is he? I don't know. I go in and, what are you doing here? He goes, I want to hear about this business. And told him, and he goes, well, what do you need? And my partner says, we need $882,642.79. I said, besides all that, I need to sell water bottles. And he goes, how much do you want? I said, $1 million. And he goes, all right. And he pulled out his checkbook, and he wrote a check, and he handed it to me. And I was like, sure. Okay. Gosh. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, pal. But we took it to the bank, and the bank said, okay, yeah. I said, what do you mean? Yeah. And she goes, yeah, he's definitely got enough to cover this check. Okay, well, put it through as quick as you can.
Did you negotiate there's a lot of things that happen here in a normal deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like say you can have 20% for $1 million? Do you do any of that?
That was never my forte. At that time, I wasn't into the numbers whatsoever. That was her area of expertise. She went to business school, therefore she knew how to do the numbers. And so what they arranged, I think, was an interest only at the first $1 million.
Oh, wow.
But then like the very next month, we needed another $1 million. And then the very next month, we needed another $2 million, and so that's when the equity started flying. And then eventually he bought her out, and she got to take off back to Hawaii with one of the employees. And yeah.
What a ride. And then eventually, so she leaves again, this time with one of your employees.
Yeah.
Do you, and then at some point, this thing's growing, you're raising money. She leaves. Are you worried that you don't understand how to do the equity, or at this point you have a lawyer?
Well, no, I was not worried. And I had a really good IP attorney, but not a really good business attorney. I had in fact, I'd love to say his name's Carl, but I won't. He was awful. He was absolutely awful. He did a horrible job of a lot of things, but I didn't really at that time understand the whole corporate side of business. You know, the sign company and the fence company was like, I know the Better Business Bureau meetings, and I know what is the Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce, yeah.
I know those kind of things, and I know how to work a crowd, and I know how to network, and I know how to sell, and I knew that business. But when it came to the corporate side of things, I had no clue. I still to this day don't do spreadsheets. And so I surround myself with people who do spreadsheets now, but back then there was none of that.
So what made you get to the point where you said, I've had enough, I want to sell this? Because I think that was 2012 or 2013, if I remember right.
Yeah, my brother had just died, and I just got married to a British woman, and I was ready to go live in England and go travel the planet and just be retired. And my time was up. The season was over, and I pretty much, I got into REI. We had sales reps who got us into REI, but we got into REI, we got the NBA, we got the military, we had all of the big retail stores, and we'd really spread out, and we were all over the place. And I was in Paris at the Louvre, and I saw Hydroflask. And that was always kind of the benchmark of success, was when we saw a Hydroflask on the far side of the world. Okay, we made it. And I had that moment. And I remember, this woman had a pink one, and I went up and I asked her, I'm like, where did you get that? And she picked it up and she goes, this is mine. This is my Hydroflask. This is mine. Because she loved it so much. And I said, well, that's interesting because I'm the owner. And she goes, no, you're not. It's mine. I said, no, I own the company. And she called her husband over, and her husband started to cry.
Oh.
Met the owner, and I was like, I'm done. And we left the Louvre, got in the train, and I got this text message from the home headquarters, and I was like, this is a stupid question. You guys are asking me just stupid questions. Like, you know how to answer that. You're big kids. Take care of business while I'm gone. If I can't even leave for my honeymoon, this is awful. I'm just ready to go. I just saw the bottle, and I was done. I returned and said, I'm out.
You sparked something. So when you said you got into the military, my wife and I sometimes have people who get out of the military. They come to our house, and we let them live with us if they're transitioning or doing a course. A lot of them go to some courses up here in Northern California. And we had this guy, I won't say his last name, but amazing guy, worked for an elite Army unit, and he had lived with us for a month, and we had just had a ton of fun. But when he retired out of North Carolina, he had come to Bend, Oregon. Mm-hmm. And he said, we were using these. This is the actual bottle that he gave me. And he said, there's a bunch of hippies making these bottles in Bend, Oregon, that not a lot of people know about. And in the special forces, we're using them, and they work.
Yeah.
And he gave my wife and I one. He gave us some other really nice, cool things. And that was actually, this is my first Hydroflask. And I was like, God, what? I think I'm innovative. Like, why aren't I on the forefront of this? Like, what the hell? I'm using this stupid aluminum bottle that's rusted. And so that was that you sparked that. So how do you sell the company?
Well, so, okay. So real quick on that, the hippies making the bottles, we didn't actually make them in Bend. That was always a misnomer. We've always been made in China, but I always marketed and put out there without breaking the law. We worked right on that fine line of made in China was marked, and you could have seen it had you been looking in the right place when you bought the bottle, but we didn't stamp it on the outside. So there's always been a big couple of things that I've heard over the years. The big one is that we were made in Bend until I sold, then it went to China. Always have been made in China. All of the water bottles have always been made in China. There's no American made metal, stainless steel, double wall vacuum insulated bottles made in China or anywhere else besides China. The other big misnomer is that she left, she took half, and she started a company that sounds like 50-50, which is not true. She did not. She did steal bottles. She did start selling bottles in the Hawaiian, at the Oahu swap meet, but that did not go anywhere. So those are two big misnomers that just aren't true. She was never my wife. Therefore, she never took half of the money and did that.
Well, I appreciate you setting that record straight. It's sort of like I actually did it too, Travis, is designed in California, made in China, the Apple thing. But, these are all technicalities that matter for the rules. And I understand all those like you do. But at the end of the day, like, it was a cool thing. There's a bunch of hippies making these water bottles that stay hot and cold. And damn if it didn't work. I mean, yeah, it does work. It's actually incredible. And then when he bought that one, I went out and like bought 10 of them because they work. But going back to you selling it, did you put an ad on Craigslist? I mean, I maybe you did. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I did. So what happened was when she was bought out, it was kind of one of those, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm staying, like the company was still so new in its infancy when she was bought out that there was a long ways to go, and they really incentivized me to stay. So they started really taking, the investor started taking care of me to keep me in.
Were you 50-50?
We were equal ownership at that point until we started taking on more and more investment. And then it started, it's just 1%. It's just 5%. It's just 10%. And then when she bolted for the umpteenth time and he bought her out, he's like, well, hey, do you have this much money to pay half of buying her out? I don't have any money. I don't even have a car at this time because she just took my truck, let alone that much money to give her half of what you're buying, we're buying her for. And so he says, oh, I'll cover it. Don't you worry. Don't
worry. I'll take that equity.
Yep. And so he did. And that put me at 49%. And 49% is when I only jokingly half say that the forklift came in and dropped off the corporate playbook. And I look at this playbook that was 8,000 pages long, and he says, you stay here another 4 years, we're going to make it well worth your while. Look at these numbers. This is what we're going to give you, and this is what we're going to do. And I opened up the book and I looked at it, and the first page, I couldn't get past it. I said, no, this doesn't set well with my heart. This isn't who I am. This is my baby. Like, don't, yeah.
So at that point they bought you out too?
At that point it was very easy to buy me out, especially with an incompetent Carl. Yeah. I hope he's listening.
I'm only laughing, Travis, because I've been down that road and I got some scars on my back, maybe my arm, a few scrapes on my head that are covered over by hair.
Yeah. For real.
Yeah, tough lessons, but you at that point, I can't imagine that you didn't. I mean, Hydroflask was relatively successful. I think the reason I remember it so well was because that is around the time that I sold my first company, and I mean, I'm just a business nut. I'm a geek. I don't know what you call me, but I really just like all of that stuff. And I had heard about your story, and I remember I was like, oh, well, the Hydroflask guy sold, and I think you were around 12 or 13 million in revenue at that point.
At least.
So I was like, oh, well, he probably made some coin, and I can't imagine you didn't make enough money to at least go buy your truck back, right?
I did. I bought a bigger truck, actually. And a trailer to go with it.
Now, you work with people who are doing businesses or starting with an idea, and how do you charge them equity? Like, what is your economics on how and Travis, how does someone even get in? Well, I can tell them how to get in touch with you, but I'm not going to do that because I don't know if you want an inundation of on that channel from there. But how does that work?
Well, yeah. So that was one of the, I mean, I'd never been a consultant before. I didn't know how to charge. I didn't know what to provide. I didn't know. And I had a kind of a hang up on that for a couple of years where it's like, what do I charge? What do I do? And so now I've put it together over the last couple of years, and it's going fairly swimmingly. I typically charge per month, and I say that we can get most things accomplished within about 4 months, from the back of the napkin drawing to delivery into your third-party logistics, or fulfillment by Amazon or your garage or wherever you're going to get it. Of course, there's engineering and there's design files that we need to get that we can obtain, and then once we have that, we're off to the races. And so I charge per month for about 4 months. If after the 4 months it's a company that I'm interested in and they're interested still in working with me, because like I said, I get along with most people, but I'm at the point where I say no to people. But if we've both said yes and we get through the 4 months and everything's going well, then we start to talk about equity and those rules.
And are you focused on people who want a physical, product, or is it also clothing, or do you care?
Yeah, I have factories all over the place, and I work with a really great team out of India. We've got factories in Vietnam and a few other countries. And here in America, that's a whole show. I mean, we could talk about American manufacturing, and right now, American factories, how that's going to.
Is that coming back, by the way?
It is, but not as quick as we had thought or wanted to. We were on a really good trajectory for, dare I say, 3 years. We were doing really well bringing it back to America. And then the last 2 years have been, even the last, is it okay to say the last 3 months have been less and less American?
Why do you think? I mean, candidly, it's important for people to understand. Well, why do you think it's that we were back in keep it in America, and the tariffs and things like that, and the things like that have been lifted, so now it's wide open again?
I do. I think the tariffs had a big part of it. I mean, when people are paying 20 to 25 additional points overnight for what they had been doing yesterday, they want to get out and go do else, whether it be another country or another business altogether. But the tariffs really gave us a lot of initiative to open up American factories. As the coronavirus persisted, the American labor force was staying home collecting unemployment versus going into work. And the Chinese factories were open and they were cranking out products. So I personally tried to buy an American-made trailer for my property. And the guy said, no, we're backed up 6 months. So, why? Because you can't bring them in from China? He goes, no, they're made here in America. I said, okay, well then why aren't we making trailers? He says, because they're sitting at home eating pizza on welfare and collecting unemployment because they don't want to go into work because they're making more money collecting unemployment than they were working at the trailer factory. I said, okay, well then I know people who are making trailers right now in China. He's like, yeah, you should probably go do that. And so it's like,
well, I think it's important because you are truth on the ground, whether it's political or not. It doesn't, candidly, for me, as business people, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we can't source things here now. So you're going to go to China. And if you're going to go to China, then, you got, truthfully, I can't overemphasize this to listeners out there. If you don't have someone that knows what they're doing and has been in the landscape and candidly is trusted.
Right. Trust is 100%, if not 99.99% of it. And I've been fortunate enough that the people that the factories I work with, I've known them for long enough that they know my standards of quality. They also know that, this order might only be $10,000 for them or $100,000 for them. And if they go and knock this off, there's no more dollars after that. But if they take this 10,000 and they do right and they do the best that they can, there's going to be another $150,000 coming to them. And so I have a very tight-knit group of factories that I know the owners. I work directly with the owners. There's no sales agent. There's no middleman. And it's my Rolodex of my trusted, friends. They're really my friends.
I think that's really important. Well, I want to thank you for taking your afternoon. I could talk to you for 6 more hours probably on a whole host of things. Anything from pirates in Venezuela. Los Rocos actually has very good bone fishing.
Yes, yeah. And so does Bonaire, the flats there. Yeah,
it does. And the park there, which gets abused, I should say. From that to flying planes, but I think we'll definitely hook up again. Before we go, 2 things. First thing is, do you have 3 HPTs for entrepreneurs who are listening out there who either not just even starting a company, for sure, if you're starting a company, but even have a product and they need to scale it?
I did not go to MBA.
I know. I want a non-MBA answer from you.
I don't know what HPA is.
Oh, wow. It's not an MBA. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I should probably explain that. So HPT is a high percentage tip that I made up from high percentage spot that was the fishing spot. So you'd say, well, where do you want to go today? You'd say, oh, take me to an HPS. And I'd be like, okay, well, we'll go there because we'll probably catch fish. So I made it up. Sorry. HPT is a high percentage tip.
I'm sorry. I would say that if you get a calling to do something, do it, because it will be hard and it will get harder, and unseen forces will come to your aid. And if it really needs to be out there, do it. I think that would be one, is that we do need entrepreneurs. And so if you get that calling, please do. I would say that number 2 would be that if I can do it and if I can figure it out, I don't like to say that everybody could, but I would say a high percentage of people could probably go out and do every bit as much, if not more, than I have. And then my 3rd one, I would say that for the younger listeners, the rest of life can happen later, but live life now. If you can go and travel, go and travel. If you can take those exotic, far off, remote jobs on the far side of the world, go do that. Worry about life later. Kids, family, all of that later. I think those would be my 3.
I think those are 3 awesome tips for everybody. And to wrap things up, how do people get in touch with you who have, actually, I lied. We're going to do 2 more things. One is, what is the sweet spot of the people you can help? And then the last thing is, how do they get in touch with you?
Sweet spot is people who are funded. I am not funding businesses. I did not walk away with $200 million. That was not Travis, who has that in his bank account.
I'm laughing, but it's important, right?
It is. I have people come and try to kidnap me, honestly.
What?
Yeah, that's a whole nother. We really do. I want to talk to you about your rowing and your biking too. So I really do want to talk to you more, Brandon. I would say funded companies that have an idea. Maybe you're not a company, but if you have time to invest and you have money to invest, and it's not outrageously expensive, but I will say sort of standard numbers are $75,000 to $100,000 to start a business. You don't need it all up front, but over the next, year or so, you'll need about $100,000, friends, family, beg, borrow, steal, angels, however you get it. And, what was the question? Did I answer?
Yeah, no, that was I'm just trying to look for your sweet spot of the customer. So you got to basically be funded, or you got to be willing to put 75 to 100 to work. If you have a product that's how you can help them.
Exactly. Right. And can you do it for cheaper? You could go through Alibaba, and I would not recommend that to anybody. Like, I would not want anybody I know to go through that. There's a lot of good on Alibaba. There are a lot of good factories that I've seen on there, but there's a very large percentage of them will perhaps not give you what you're paying for. And like you said, you can go broke doing things like that. I also seem to work with women really well. Female entrepreneurs are also kind of my jam. I don't know why. I guess I really prefer women to be around and spend my time with. And we seem to get along really well. Yeah.
Well, you seem really easy to get along with.
I am now more so. Yeah. But I'm really driven. I'm really focused, and I really, I want the best for all of my clients. And so I am a little bit of a taskmaster. It's like, hey, what are the 3 Pantones we're doing? I don't know. Well, we're not moving forward until you get me those 3 Pantones. Well, what then we talk about Pantones for 8 hours, and we have a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Right. And then how does someone get in touch with you who fits this?
I have a company called the Tumalo Group. So Travis, TUMALOGROUP.com, Travis@TumaloGroup.com. Send me an email. Instagram is probably a really good way to get a hold of me. I shy away from social media. But
I actually didn't find you on Instagram. So can you give us your URL one more time?
We're connected now anyway. Travis at TUMALOGROUP.com.
Perfect. We'll put that in the show notes. And hey, man, let's do this again. It was a lot of fun. I'm really grateful for you sharing, being open and sharing the true story. That's really wonderful, and people really can learn a lot from that. So I'm grateful for that.
Oh, Brandon, I'm like I said earlier, like, you ride around in my truck with me all the time. I'm listening to you, and I listen to these awesome stories. And I was like, how am I going to compete with this guy who's telling this awesome story about starting this multi-quadrillion-dollar company, 15 different businesses? I'm like, yeah, it's just great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. So we'll catch up on the channel that I know where to grab you, and have a great rest of the week, man. And thanks again.
Thank you, Brandon. Take care and be well. Bye.